My coat of many colors, my mama made for me.
Hey everybody! Happy Tuesday! I am Tim, that's T-I-N as in Nancy Sinatra, T-I-M as in Marilyn Monroe. First off, I want to do a quick shout out to my friends Cleo, Edgar, and Miss Persia, aka DJ Joshua Massive, who I was just chatting with on Facebook and promised I'd say hello in the video. So, shout out! What? So, episode 4. I don't know about you all, but I found this episode like maybe a little bit kind of dull or slow in comparison to the last few weeks. This episode was a little bit more tepid, perhaps, but I don't think that that's necessarily like a problem. The arc of a reality television season starts maybe with a bang and then has to build a little, and then maybe you have a little bit of a lull before things kind of come out full force for the last couple of episodes. And this just felt like one of those episodes that was more so about getting us from here to there, the lull before the climax, if you will. I was actually somewhat surprised to see Shad and Chanel win the challenge after getting critiqued for giving their special guests the limelight more than themselves. I did think that their performance was one of the most polished, one of the most dynamic to watch. How much did you love Vanessa Williams' daughter, Jillian Hervey? I want to be her best friend. Like, now. One of my friends wanted me to talk about the continued racialization of the Yarlexis team of Jara Sofia and Alexis Mateo, and what he sees as the racism of sort of casting them in as the underdog, either by the other contestants or the production team and the editing. This is an interesting one, I think. I know you all heard me go on in the first and second week about the way they make kind of an ongoing joke of the English issues, but it's interesting that despite being sort of set up as the underdog, that Yarlexis, up until this week, kind of continued to show people up. And it's also been disturbing in one way, but refreshing in another way, how explicit they have been about the English thing with the other contestants, criticizing them for their English skills. And in previous seasons, I felt like the Puerto Rican queens had the deck stacked against them in certain challenges. I'm thinking, for instance, of Kenya Michaels in the Snatch Game. Either cultural differences and the English issue has really seemed to present challenges to the Puerto Rican queens, and yet it's never been really remarked on explicitly. So I think it's interesting to see it brought out so explicitly this season. On the one hand, I think it's kind of fucked up to see the other contestants talking about their language skills as a detriment in the competition. At the same time, now that it's out there, it's something that can be talked about. I also think Jara Sofia in particular, this was a really redemptive season or series for her on All Stars. We've really seen, her talent, I think, being acknowledged to a different extent than it was during her own season in season 3. It does seem like that has come at the expense of Alexis Mateo. So unfortunately, it comes across a little bit as that sort of phenomenon where you can't praise one brown queen without taking down another. A little bit like, you can't have Tyra Banks and Naomi Campbell. The industry only has space for one. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the episode of Untucked and the conversation that the queens had shortly after Jujubee's boyfriend made his video appearance. They expressed this sentiment that the really important thing and really wonderful thing in Jujubee's relationship was that what he truly loved was, her quote-unquote real self, or her boy self. I don't necessarily buy into the notion that my drag self is a, quote-unquote fictitious self, and my boy self is my real self. I'm not sure I buy into the notion of the real self in general. To me, who I am is constantly in flux, and being created through my interactions with other people is, determined by, social interactions and by what's projected onto me from the outside as much as what comes from inside. It's not just what's on the quote-unquote inside, and what I think I love about drag is that it throws all of that into question. It's like, what's a costume, what's real? For me, this is an art that I practice that has more and more to do with my identity every day I do it. And through it, I tap into parts of myself, however the self is defined that I would not be able to. While all of this isn't necessarily what attracted my partner to me and isn't what keeps us together, I do feel like it is very important for him to appreciate it as an artistic practice. It is a huge part of my identity and my exploration of identity. I think I just object to the idea that the boy self is the real self and the more important self. And I also feel like giving weight to the boy self does have this sort of element of misogyny, in that it's sort of like, well, it's okay to be a girl sometimes as long as you take it off. While I identify as male and not transgender and feel that I benefit from all the privileges that come along with being a male in this world. I'm not afraid to be associated with womanliness and femininity and my own femininity. I don't have a problem with creating confusion. It's part of why I do this. And while I want to own the privileges that I have, I also don't want to run from being associated with the things in our culture that are more stigmatized. You know, I think unfortunately there is this perception that some people have that drag is about making fun of women and femininity. And I think that when we overly reinforce the masculinity that we have within the context of being drag performers, sometimes it plays into that a little bit. Because it's like, yeah, femininity is gross and funny and hilarious and exaggerated, and that's why I only do it sometimes, but really, I'm that thing that you're more okay with. No, really, I am also this, and if you're not okay with this, I'm gonna be even more this and put it up in your face until we rethink who we allow space for in this world and what identities we think of as more desirable. That's all. Who's calling me? Hello? I'm gonna have to talk to you later. I'm recording. Bye bye now.